What are the 7 rules of storytelling? How can we use them to supercharge our players' engagement and immersion in our D&D sessions? And just who is this mysterious ancient wise man who gave us these 7 rules that are still used in storytelling today, almost 2,500 years later? Welcome creators, I am Holistic Dungeon Master and I help DMs master their craft. If you're enjoying my content so far, then like the video, crit the subscribe button and notification bell. Now let's get rolling! I left it way too long to improve my storytelling, and I paid the price. When I first started DMing, I honestly didn't think too deeply about storytelling. You know, I was a fresh new baby dungeon master. I was too busy learning all the rules, trying to come up with NPCs and encounters for my players. I thought that's all there was to being a great dungeon master, but I was wrong. Oh, so very wrong. Look, for a while it kind of was, but you can only go so far without great storytelling. I learned this the hard way, the very hard way when I started DMing professionally. I was great at coming up with wacky scenarios and taking what my players gave me during our weekly sessions and just kind of running with it. Look, we had a bunch of fun, but from the very first session of D&D that people actually paid me real money, their hard-earned cash for, I quickly realized that my storytelling was virtually non-existent. And for players who are paying to play Dungeons and Dragons, that simply wasn't good enough. You see, when you pay some stranger online to render you a service, no matter what it is, your expectations are a little higher than if someone was just to do it for you for free. And rightly so. My wacky and goofy yet unstructured and disjointed DM style that was a perfectly fine fit for my bunch of friends at our game table was not really worth paying for. After a few sessions, I could sense that my first ever paid group was beginning to get a little bit kind of fed up, and we even lost a player who told me that this isn't what they were expecting and this isn't what they're paying for. I was devastated. I really thought that I could give people their money's worth as a pro DM, but clearly I was missing something crucial. I racked my brains like crazy after losing that player. Next week's session was looming on the horizon, and I knew that if I didn't figure it out, I'd probably lose one or more of them, and I could forget about ever being a pro DM. Out of desperation, I really didn't want to do this, but I messaged that player, you know, and I asked them straight up why they left. And in all fairness to them, they gave me a very honest answer. Your storytelling sucks, bro. That hurt a lot, but it felt like a light switch went off in my head. I thanked them for their honesty, and I immediately began researching how to tell a great story. The next session was only 2 nights away, and panic was beginning to set in, but then I found the answer to all of my problems from a very unexpected source. Aristotle. You see, Aristotle wrote 7 rules of storytelling almost 2.5 thousand years ago that storytellers still use to this day. In movies, in books, even Shakespeare used a lot of these rules to write his plays. So, if it works for other people, surely it's gotta work for me, right? I immediately began to apply them while prepping that imminent session, and I immediately saw results. Sure, I mean, look, very small results at first. These 7 rules are ultimately skills that must be improved upon. But I did notice my players were more engaged and immersed than ever before, and I even got a few compliments after on running a great session. Long story short, I didn't lose any of these players. We filled that seat and we ran through the whole module, and some of these players even stayed on for the next module I was running. But ultimately, that's what DMing is. It's interactive storytelling. I've been using Aristotle's 7 rules for storytelling in my games for years now, and I'm going to show you exactly how each one can be used to massively enhance your games and enthrall your players in your captivating stories. Let's dive into some ancient wisdom. Before we delve deeper into the video, I'd just like to give a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. You guys are helping me make better content for this channel and beyond, so thank you so much for supporting. More information about how you can support the channel at the end of the video. The plot is the most important aspect of your story, and you want your players to understand the general gist of it early. You can't give too much away either, right? You don't want to spoil the story, but this goes beyond a simple adventure hook. Yes, a good hook is a great starting point to get your players to buy into the plot, but you really want to give them a gist of what the plot's going to be like in the first 2 to 3 sessions. Just for a couple of examples, in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, the published module, spoiler alert, the fact that there is a vast hoard of embezzled gold for the taking somewhere in the city, and that nefarious groups are already eagerly seeking it, it's all established established within the first few sessions. In Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series, there it is, great series, one of the best, spoilers for this too, we learn that there is a millennia-long age of tyranny and oppression that's happening under the rule of basically a mortal godlike emperor, and that there is a resistance who are trying to bring him down. We learn that pretty early on in the book. You want to show your party, not tell them, however, that there is something to be overcome, a mystery to be solved, a tyrant to be toppled, and you want to do this as early as you can. Pro tip, the more unfair or unjust the obstacle, or the more tantalizing the mystery, etc., the more emotionally invested your party will become. That's important. Emotional investment. That's the goal of good storytelling. The simpler you make the plot, the more your players will resonate with it. But what's next? How will we pull on those emotional threads of our party or players and further connect them to the story? With great characters, of course. A good plot is one thing, yes, it is the most important, but it's the characters within it that your players will connect with. It's very, very difficult, it's very hard to care about a character that isn't believable though. No, I don't mean they've got to be realistic or, this is fantasy we're talking about, right? Or science fiction or whatever. But their identity must be congruent with their actions. It must make sense. And no matter who they are, they must have something, or at least they should. It's difficult to do this for every NPC, but try to do it as much as you can. Your characters should have something about them that your players can respect and admire, even if grudgingly. Black and white characters are super, super boring. Here's just a few examples, right? The cowardly knight always looks for a way to avoid confrontation, and his reputation is deservedly terrible because of this. But no matter what, when the chips are down and when it comes to a fight, they never ever abandon their allies. A villainous example now, and spoiler alert for this too, there's gonna be a lot of spoilers I think for these examples. Anton Chigurh, it's been a while since I've watched that movie. I'll put whatever his name is up there so you can draw your own conclusions about it. Anton is obviously a psychopathic killer, but he is absolutely unstoppable, a sheer unconquerable force who always seems to know the protagonist's next move. And he has this strange code with, no matter the circumstance, his actions always fall in line with. Sure, we might not agree with what he's doing, he's out there literally killing people, but his skill and his persistence and his sheer dedication to his code, that is admirable, or at least we can respect it. So just like that example, this is especially effective for villains in D&D, I find, and we can elevate them and our other characters even further if what they say and do is rooted in our next rule of storytelling. What's the theme of your story? All good tales have a theme, so craft your adventures around one. Is it love, loss, death, chaos, friendship, oppression, freedom, the ending of things, the beginning of things? It could be anything. We reinforce this theme, your theme, whatever it is, by showing it again and again and again to our players without explicitly telling them what it is. Show, don't tell. For example, if your theme is about death, then maybe your big bad evil guy is a necromancer. Maybe it takes place around a festival of mourning and everything's themed like that, right? Decorations, rituals, all of these kind of things to reinforce the theme. Or maybe it even takes place in winter to symbolize that theme of decay and ending. Whatever your theme is, find ways to drive it home, and you can get infinitely creative with this. And if you do it right, it will just increase both your players' buy-in to your world and their immersion. To them, your games will feel that there is a point to be understood, and there will be an emotional tone set by your theme that will be so satisfying for your players each time it is reinforced. Bonus points to the dungeon master who incorporates their theme into the next rule of storytelling. Bad dialogue can ruin a good story. It can really detract from how good a story is. Just think of any show or game, I can think of one, Horizon Zero Dawn, I'm looking at you, where the story was cool, the lore was great, but the dialogue sucked bad. It does ruin things. You don't want that. Make sure your dialogue is great. Practice NPC voices, bullet point important conversations. And above all, make sure your NPC dialogue is congruent. It makes sense based on their character and traits. Those bonus points from earlier, you can collect them now if you can write dialogue that references and reinforces the theme. It will just have huge impact. Here are some examples. That cowardly knight from before, he begins to stutter whenever the possibility of a fight comes up in conversation. The stern captain of the Royal Guard speaks in short, clipped, practical, and brusque sentences. Cormac McCarthy, author of No Country for Old Men, definitely picked up those bonus points when he wrote Anton Chigurh's Dialog. Anton often speaks about the impossible odds of his specific coin being there and then in a particular scene. And the theme of the movie and the book is ultimately chance and chaos. This applies to when you speak as well. You are telling the story and your dialogue and your diction matters. If it's a serious or tense scene, are you speaking normally, carelessly, or are you enunciating slowly with a great sense of gravity to complement and elevate the tone of the scene? Yes, juxtaposition can be good for a few laughs here and there, but ultimately you want the players to feel the emotional tone. If you wish to do this, you need to reinforce it in as many ways as you can. This is what will draw your players deeper into your story. This is great storytelling, and they will feel that. And all of this leads wonderfully to our next rule of storytelling. Another beautiful way to cement themes, emotions, and scenes that I think that every DM should make use of. Aristotle's rules for storytelling are kind of his critiques on what would make a good play. That was the main medium of entertainment back in ancient Greece, plays and theaters. So this rule was kind of meant for the musical choruses in these plays. We can't really, I mean, I'm sure a lot of us would love to, but it just wouldn't work so well if we burst out in a fit of operatic singing when narrating to our players. You know, I haven't tried to do that. If someone has, comment down below, please. Tell us how it went. How we can effectively apply this rule to our storytelling is by using curated music playlists that we can change, and we should change a lot depending on the mood or scene. I am a huge fan of curated playlists. I've spoken about them before. They are very important, and here's why. Just imagine there is heartfelt and touching music when two PCs are having a deep conversation about their past. There's tense and foreboding music building tension when some evil stuff is clearly about to go down. Or heartrending, sad music when something terrible or tragic is happening or being spoken about. Music is a human emotion made tangible, and we can use that to arouse certain emotions in our players to punctuate our themes and moments. By now your players are really feeling it. The group imagination that you're crafting and nourishing with your storytelling. They can hear it not only through your dialogue and narration, but even in the music you're using. But how will they see it? Again, for Aristotle, he had the physical stage in mind when he came up with this rule. How it enhanced the themes, the tones, the message of whatever was being shown, how it was designed and decorated. We don't have a big theater stage, but we do have our own stages. This will vary depending on how you run your games, but it could be a virtual tabletop. It could be your game table and your games room. It could just be your Discord server, whatever chat function you're using. And most importantly, it is the minds of our party. Their minds are the stage for the story we are telling them. So we actually have huge potential for adding decor to our storytelling. A lot of different mediums we can use. Here are just a few. It could be physical or digital art handouts, a backdrop on your webcam if you've got a green screen that you can change to fit the scene. You could be posting pictures and sounds in whatever chat you're using. You could change your lighting, right? Change the colors to fit the mood. You could use props, little built things, little potions or little letters that you've burnt in the oven or you've browned and aged them with coffee grinds. You got minis, or if you're digital, you got tokens on your VTTs. Even the mechanics you use in the game. And a very important and potent one is your ability to describe a scene to the players using only your voice and your gestures and body language. Whatever it is you use, make sure it's congruent with your theme. It must make sense for your party. The look and feel of whatever handout or decor you're using, it should match whatever piece of the story they're experiencing. Some more examples. Again, we'll rock back to if your theme is about death, maybe your art handouts have a spooky cemetery vibe. Skulls and bats and cobwebs and gravestones and things like that. Maybe you narrate in a grave and solemn voice. Maybe you use skull dice, right? It could be anything. What if your theme is that of chaos, like in No Country for Old Men? You could incorporate lots of chance in your sessions, right? There could be gambling minigames. You could get players to flip coins as a mechanic for important outcomes in the game. There could even be lots of wrong place, wrong time, or even right place, right time. Lots of those moments in your games to reinforce that feeling of pure chaos and chance. As always, the only limit is your wonderful Dungeon Master creativity. And finally, there is one last rule that can add a fistful of black powder to the already steadily burning fire that you've enkindled in your players' emotions. One crucial element that every story needs. Every good one, anyway. Humans enjoy a good spectacle. They just do, whether it's for good or for ill. Huge dramatic moments, epic explosions, intense emotions, and awe-inspiring natural disasters. We can elevate any scene by adding a splash, a dash of spectacle. Here are just some examples. Tons of examples in this video. Here's some more. You can speak in a rising crescendo when narrating the big bad evil guy arriving in spectacular fashion. You can contort your face with rage as an NPC you're role-playing spits pure hatred at another character. You can use sound or lighting effects for certain spells, attacks, weather events, beasts, monsters, people, ambience, anything. One of my Patreons actually had a very, very good example that honestly I'd never thought of before, and it just sounded really, really cool. They use scents during their, in-person sessions, essential oils and incenses. That is so cool. Like, just imagine how much more effective a temple scene where a PC goes to speak with their god. Imagine how much better that would be if you lit some sage and dimmed the lights as they begin their meditations. Awesome. Do you see now why these rules are so effective? Why they make for incredible storytelling? So much so that they've been used for thousands of years and they continue to be used to this day. It's because each of them enhances the other. Good dialogue reinforces the theme. Great characters make the good dialogue that makes sense for their character. Your decor not only suits the theme, but also the mood and tone of the scenes your awesome and believable characters are in. You've multiplied the emotional resonance of some of these scenes with music to match it, and finally, you've added a little dash of spectacle where needed to really inflame your players' emotional responses. And under all of this, as a foundation, lies your easy to understand plot. These rules are so powerful because they all work together holistically. Thanks, Aristotle. You're a swell guy. He's a swell guy. Down in the description, you'll find a link to my free archetypal NPC PDF. They are system neutral and story focused, so you can get started adding compelling characters to your games right away, no matter what game you're playing. You'll also find the link to the HDM community Discord server. We have weekly improv events, prep streams, and we're organizing games in there, so hop on in and join the fun. You've heard a lot from me, now I want to hear from you. Please let us know in the comments down below. Do you use any of these already? Do you plan to use them? Which ones do you love? Which ones do you hate? Put it all down in the comments so we can create, craft, and foster this community of DMs who help each other to hone their craft. If you've watched this video up until now, then you are the DM that I make these videos for. Someone who is truly dedicated to becoming a master of their craft. So thank you for watching to the end. If you'd like to support the channel further, you'll find the link to my Patreon down in the description also. I take my Patreon suggestions for future videos heavily into consideration. So if you'd like to tailor this channel's content specifically to your DM needs, consider subscribing. But if you'd like a lovely free way to support the channel, then crit the subscribe button and notification bell. And remember, this world needs good DMs who can storytell like Aristotle.